Is the tanking finally over for the Utah Jazz? There's a chance for them to make some big swings this year. Let's figure it out on this edition of The Nest. Hello everybody, welcome back to The Nest RXP. My name is Robin, welcoming you back as we rebuild each NBA team in their off season, and it's actually been pretty fun so far going through all of these teams and figuring them out. And we have another pretty fun team to look into with the Utah Jazz this time around, who have been a little bit in the spotlight as of late because of more so for their tanking, but because they are also looking at possibly trading up because they really want their hometown AJ Dyabantsa, who we're going to be discussing and seeing if we can get him to the Jazz in this episode. So stay tuned for that. But please make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure to go check out the TikTok, the Instagram, everything in between, because I'm going to have more content covering the NBA playoffs as they get close to wrapping up. And as we just continue in with the offseason, I'll be posting more short form content over there as well. So stay tuned. So in order to get AJ Dyabantsa, in order to get him at that first overall pick confidently, you're going to need to give up a lot, because the Wizards, they don't really have a reason to trade him because he also fits their team really well. So you're going to have to give up a decent bit in order to make it happen. So that's why you kind of have to overpay just a smidge, and there's a couple ways you can do that. The trade I ended up going with will look like this, but there's other ways that you can go about it that we will discuss. So the trade for me looks like simply trading the second overall pick plus Ace Bailey for Cam Whitmore and the first overall pick. Now, why Ace Bailey? Mainly because Bailey wanted to go to the Wizards in the first place. That was his destination. That's who the Wizards wanted. That's where Ace wanted to go. So I think that reunion will be beneficial for both of them long term. And I also think that because of the other trades we're going to be making, it'll be a little bit easier to lose him and shape around him. Now, obviously, there's other options. You could simply trade the second overall pick and then future first round picks if the Wizards are like, no, we want picks. We don't want players. We want picks. If they want that, go for it. But I think in terms of like maximizing what you have right now, this is the best way to do it. And you get Cam Whitmore out of it, who's another guy that can play off the bench and be solid for you, possibly. But regardless, now that you have the first overall pick, you're obviously going to be taking AJ Dyabantsa, the guy you wanted, the guy you traded for in the first place. You could also just risk it and think that he may drop to 2 if he does the Alex Sarr thing where he's like, I don't want to go to Atlanta, I want to go to Washington, so he falls down to 2. AJ could do that, but that's such a risk. It is also just something I don't believe in as a... I'm a firm believer in choice with the players. I'm a firm believer in all that, but I'm also a firm believer in teams just taking the best player available. But it's such a loaded thing that I'm not a fan of in the NBA nowadays. But regardless, this is the best way to ensure you get AJ Dyabantsa. But now that you have AJ, that kind of leaves you with the question. You're going to have essentially a small forward type player running shooting guard for you, and then you're going to have 2 power forwards and a center in your starting lineup. So do you just work with that? Do you just trust Lauri Markkanen and AJ Dyabantsa to run those wing positions, or do you try and make trades that fit a bit better with you? And I think the latter would be better, particularly because I think that what you need on this team more than a Lauri Markkanen type is you need a more defensive-minded player, and that's why the trades we're going to make is to improve the depth and improve the defense of this team. So what does that look like? Like I said, obviously that's going to look like trading Lauri Markkanen, and there aren't a ton of trades I would do with Lauri just because not a ton of teams can take on his contract that also want to take on his contract, but I drew up a couple of them that should work, and we're going to be talking to one I think they actually should do at the end. So the first one that I drew up that I think would be extremely easy to do is something along the lines of trading Lauri Markkanen to the Heat for Tyler Hero and Nikola Jovic, and maybe if you need to include picks, maybe picks. But I think that you could pretty much do 1-for-1 and just use Jovic as a swap, as a salary swap. I think that works for them. I can see the Heat not doing it just because they kind of have the same issue where they need wings. They don't really need another forward big man type. But I think that Lowry would fit very well with that Heat team. Him and Bam in the front court would be very interesting to watch, and then Kelly Ware backing him up, especially if they do make a ton of trades and like go and get Giannis or something. That'd be interesting to see. But regardless, I don't think this is the best move for the Jazz, but I do think that's an option for them. The next trade that I saw that has been going around a little bit is the Pistons, and the Pistons have been looking to get that second star alongside Cade Cunningham. So I drew up a trade for it, but they don't really have people that the that the Jazz would want. So it was a pretty pick heavy. It was a pick heavy trade, which I don't think the Jazz want since they're going to be contending. So I don't like this trade as much. But this is kind of what it would look like. It would look like Lauri Markkanen going to the Pistons for Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, Ron Holland, and like 4 first-round picks, 2 or 3 of them being swaps. Again, I'm not a fan of that. I don't think the Jazz need more picks. I think what they need is role players and like those sub all-star caliber players that can just fit their role at an elite level. And so that's why I think this next trade that we're going to be doing is going to be a lot better for them. But this is also an option if the Pistons are like, or sorry, if the Jazz are like, we don't feel like we're fully confident. We want to take those picks and we're going to trade like Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, and we're going to trade those guys with the picks and get the guys that we want instead. Which I do think that would work as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think that if you want the just straightforward approach, not this upcoming trade, but the trade after it is the best way to do that. So the final trade that I made, and this is the trade that I think the Jazz should heavily look towards, is with the Orlando Magic, who have been saying that they want to get off of Jalen Suggs' contract and possibly trade him to clear some salary cap and also just move some guys around. Now, this won't clear salary cap for them, but it will give them a guy that fits better alongside them if they wanted to make more trades and trade Franz Wagner or something like that. So this is what it may look like. So this is what the trade would look like. It would be Lauri Markkanen going to the Magic, obviously, and the Jazz would acquire Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, Goga Bitadze, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick. May need to ask for more in terms of picks, but it would be something along those lines with those 3 players as the core. Now, like I said, the Magic would probably rather get a guard since they already have Franz and Paolo, so they would probably look to move Franz off of this. But if they were to take this trade, they'd probably look to move Franz. But I do like this trade for the Jazz in particular because you get that starting caliber off guard, which Jalen Suggs I consider more of an off guard, but he played point guard this year. You get that star quality off guard that can play alongside Keontae George, be that perimeter defender when you have Walker Kessler and Triple J running the defensively holding down the rim. That's a nasty big 3 in terms of defense, not including AJ Dyabantsa, who's going to be coming in and turn into a pretty solid defender himself. So I love that for them, and I do think that this package is the best for them. However, the issue is I don't know if the Magic would make this trade because, like I said, they're looking to get maybe an upgrade at that guard position for contract purposes or maybe just to move off entirely. Whatever the case may be, I think this next trade would be better for all teams involved, and it's a 3-team trade that kind of has the same principle, but it just tweaks it a little bit. So this is, again, the same trade, but instead it also involves the San Antonio Spurs. So the Magic will acquire De'Aaron Fox, the Spurs will acquire Lauri Markkanen, and the Jazz will acquire Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, and Goga Bitadze, and a first-round pick from each of the teams, the Spurs and the Magic. Again, picks can be argued, it can be protected picks, it can be second-round picks, it can be whatever. Something along those lines. But this is the core of the trade. Now, why would each team do this trade? Simply, Magic, like I said, they need a more consistent point guard. They move off of Jalen Suggs, and they get a worse contract because De'Aaron Fox obviously has a worse contract, but he's a better offensive fit. And assuming that he can return to De'Aaron Fox form because he hasn't been lately, that would be huge for the Magic. And he fits a little bit better alongside Paolo and Franz, especially if you move off Franz and get other players, which I haven't done Magic yet, but I'm going to be talking about that because I do think that's what the Magic should do, so stay tuned for that. But the Spurs obviously get Lauri Markkanen because he just fits beautifully alongside Victor Wembanyama. Could you imagine a front court of Lauri Markkanen and Victor Wembanyama? That is the magnifique. That is the perfect backcourt or perfect front court for the Spurs team, especially when you have Dylan Harper starting alongside Stephon Castle, and then you have a ton of options at the small forward position, whether you do Champagny, whether you do Vassell, whether you do, if you decide to do Keldon Johnson, which I like him better off the bench anyway, Harrison Barnes maybe, any of those guys fits beautifully because now you have another great off-ball player in Lauri Markkanen, another great spacer, who's also big enough that can be a good rebounder and good secondary rim protector as well, especially when you have Luke Cornett coming off the bench as well. That is a nasty front court rotation. So I think this is the best trade for all parties. Again, picks, you may not be able to get a first round pick out of it. It will probably be more like seconds. But I think this is best for the Jazz. I think this is best for the Spurs. And the Magic, we'll see. But regardless, that's about it. I like the core that they have. I don't think they need to move anybody yet. They may need to make moves in the at the trade deadline in order to get better fits. But I think the core of the team, I think it is set now. So what would the rotation look like because of this? The rotation would look like Keontae George obviously running point guard with Jalen Suggs running off guard, AJ Dyabantsa starting at small forward, Triple J and Walker Kessler running the two front court positions. And then off the bench you have Isaiah Collier, Bryce Sensabaugh, Cody Williams, Kyle Filipowski, Goga Pitadze, and then maybe spot minutes for Jonathan Isaac and Cam Whitmore. You can obviously switch as you want if you'd rather have offense and start, or not start, but play Cam Whitmore over Cody Williams or Kyle Filipowski. You can absolutely do that, but this is the rotation I would go with. So I like this team now with this rotation with this team because you have Keontae George, who's going to be that lead ball handler, that lead creator. You have Jalen Suggs, who can be kind of a secondary creator if need be, but primarily he's going to be that 3-and-D guy. He's going to be energy, defense. He can space a little bit. He can be a slasher, and with this team, you're going to have enough spacing for him to just slash. AJ Dyabantsa obviously is going to be incredible, so he can kind of fit. He can kind of plug and play into that offense very nicely. Triple J and Walker Kessler are obviously going to run that front court. Triple J can be your primary offensive creator if you rather have him over Keontae George, but regardless, this is beautiful. And then you got Bryce Sensabaugh and Goga Bitadze and all these guys off the bench. You have an incredibly deep and powerful team, and it just looks so good on paper. The biggest question is, can they keep it together? Can they be coached well enough? And can this team just win enough games and play well enough because they're so young? So that's the biggest question, I think, for the Utah Jazz. But let me know what you think down below. I'm really curious if you think that the Jazz should make more moves, or should they just keep this team? Because this team I like. I like how this team looks after I made some of these trades. There's obviously other options. If you rather just take Darren Peterson at number 2, you can easily run a lineup with Darren Peterson, Keontae George, Lauri Markkanen, Triple J, and Walker Kessler. I don't like having Lauri run the 3. I think that's just too big, not enough foot speed defensively with this team. But regardless, I think all of that could work. This is just what I would do. So let me know what you think down below. Should the Jazz trade Lauri? Should they not trade Lauri? Should they make more moves? Should they make less moves? Should they just keep it consistent? What do you think? Let me know down below. And again, make sure to just follow the channel, subscribe, all that stuff. Just keep up. Wait for your favorite team. If the Jazz aren't your favorite team, then just keep an eye out because I will be getting to all 30 NBA teams. So just stay tuned. If I haven't posted it already, I will be getting to it. I promise. But until then, y'all, peace.